After availability zones, we do have more options in Microsoft Azure to protect, to maintain our resources or running applications safely in disaster situations. Hello guys, my name is Harshangra, and in this video we are going to talk about two important things which will help us to make sure our resources or deployed applications are up and running 24/7 and meet all the SLA like promised by Microsoft Azure. So the very first thing we are going to talk about in this video is paired regions. Just to give you the brief idea, the paired regions are nothing but just a copy or duplicate copy of one region to another region. I'm pretty sure that you guys may not be aware about this functionality because Microsoft has already think about this situation that let's say if one of the region goes down, the whole region, not availability zones, the whole region goes down. So we must have a way to make sure our applications are back to working state in a minimal time. So they think about this whole situations and they introduced like this region pairs. I will talk about this more, don't worry, we have this in detail, and of course I will also mention in the practical in upcoming video. The second one is a very important one too, which is the availability sets. I can say that like this is a totally different concept, but yeah, availability zones is the newest concept, and previously we worked on availability sets all the time. Now what this is and how it actually help us while we deployed our resources in Azure platform. So basically you can think of when we create a resource or a virtual machine or a storage account, it goes to a specific region which we choose during the deployment. But you also can think of when it goes to orchestrator and try to reach to the data center, it automatically, or maybe it goes to the same specific rack server inside the data center. So just imagine if any hardware failure happened. Imagine that, and this usually happen because I can tell you that previous experience with me is all about I was working with the Hotmail or Outlook data center team where we almost every day 4 to 5 to 6 or 7 in 8 hours we found that data centers or the rack server actually goes down inside the data center. Don't think the whole data center, just a specific rack server because of motherboard, maybe the power resources or maybe the cooling system, something goes wrong and everything is down. So in that situation they don't want our application or server to be running in a bad state or even a no state. So they want us to keep up our servers running all the time if you have a business critical application. So they introduced availability sets in general. So the purpose of this one is to help you in a planned and unplanned disaster situations or maintenance. In both situations you can consider that basically it's all about the maintenance, not the disaster situation, but you can think of in a disaster situation also if one rack server goes down and your web server or application is running on that. So let's do one thing, try to understand a little bit more, because after this video we have all the practical to know more about how we can set up availability zones, how we can set up this regions pairs, and of course how we can see those information, and the last one, how we can set up availability sets. So guys, let's begin to understand more about the concept about paired region, and the second one is availability sets. So when we talk about the availability zones, we understand that we have multiple different zones available in the same region. So for example, we have this region and we have multiple availability zones. And as I mentioned already that these are isolated basically zones that they have a separate networking, they have a separate cooling system and the power state, everything. So when you deployed your web server in one place and if anything goes down in this place, don't worry, you have another availability zone where you have deployed your resources or infrastructure. So definitely it comes back and it keeps running for you 24/7. That gives you a business continuity, right? So similarly, when we talk about paired region, now why it is important? Obviously, let me give you first one example. So you can think of that this is maybe not possible that this is going to be happen, but yeah, the good people in Microsoft, they still think that it is a kind of possibility and could happen in any possible region. So what they can think of is, now availability zones are available in a region. That's fine, that's great, but how about the whole region goes down? How about in that situation? Maybe a natural disaster happen, maybe the power outage, or maybe anything happen wrong to that particular region or the whole area. Then yeah, you definitely need to think of the disaster planning or disaster situations, because the customers has a lots of data, lots of things running on Azure platform. So Microsoft need to come up with a solution that if that exactly happened, then they need to provide very minimal downtime to the resources and make sure things are running back to normal. So what they have think of and what they have done is they actually paired these regions. For example, if this region is East US, so they have done, as an example, no, this is exactly the paired region. I will talk about the paired region information in Microsoft official website, but this is just to give you one example. So you have running your all resources in this particular region, which is East US. So what they have done is they actually copy the same data, whatever is running on this particular region on the data centers, to, for example, West US. So what is the advantage of this? Basically, it's a kind of duplicate data, but don't think your paired region is keep running those resources all the time. No, it just copy the data to that place. So if anything happen to this particular region, so you have West US 2 region to find all the data back to the normal state and try to make sure it should be considered as a part of a secondary region where things are up and running. So the overall concept and idea of this to deploy is make sure the consumers, applications, servers, and all sort of resources they have deployed in the region are immediately, or try to make sure it should be running as much as in a faster way, and that's how they can think of a paired region basically. Now, before to talk about the benefits and advantage, you can think of, hey, can I choose paired region by my own? No, Microsoft has already decided that which data center goes to which paired region. That is the first answer. Now, second thing, is it really necessary for us? No, obviously no. You can choose no, don't use these options, because this is a availability options for us, and this is really a great way to deploy our disaster situations or disaster planning or disaster recovery outage planning. So yeah, overall the point here is it would be a really good idea if you deploy so that you can run your applications and resources all the time 24/7. So now let's talk about that, how it actually going to help us and where we can see more details when we talk about the paired region, especially in terms of real-time deployment. I can talk to you in just a minute, but before that, let's talk about the benefits and advantages. So the very first one is the business continuity. As I mentioned, definitely you need to think about your business continuity and disaster recovery situation. Whenever you think about this, I think the paired region would be a great choice, because from the primary region and the secondary region, Microsoft has decided at least they must have 300 miles difference from each other, so that it should have a very, distinguish distance or a very efficient way to deploy in that much far away place, because they can just think of that, hey, if anything goes down, definitely approximate 300 miles area would be enough if anything goes wrong to one particular region. So the another region up and running during that time, and the users won't find if it is a normal logical failure, but if it is a physical failures, like the whole region is down, then yeah, then of course we have an option to just make sure our resources keep running on the secondary region. I'll show you what I'm trying to talk about here. So the second thing is, of course, as I mentioned, that Microsoft has decided it must have at least 300 miles difference, which is actually a significant in a way, like you can make sure that one particular region goes down and another one is running. So let's not talk about that more, because we already got the idea. So the third one is the replication. I think if you are following the storage videos as well of mine, I have discussed about the geo-redundant storage replication, which means it can actually copy 3 times your data to the paired region in a different rack server or in a different data centers available in that particular region. The purpose is if one of the data center or the rack server is down, you must have your data up and running, and it can be restored and can be restored via Azure backup if you are using a real disaster recovery solutions from Microsoft. And in Azure backup we have a cross region recovery, which is a very new feature, and it's really a great one. So if you deployed your backup in one region, you can take your backup or restore to another region as well. Also, you can take a backup of your data to another region, because you may think of, hey, maybe my data goes down. So yeah, these are the possibility. And one more thing about the geo-redundant storage: whenever you deployed a storage or a recovery services vault, which is a part of Azure backup, it is always a good idea to choose geo-redundant storage, because it can help us to make sure our data is safe if a data center goes down or the whole region goes down. So it's really a great way to maintain our storage and databases, or I mean, not a databases. Yeah, it's a part of data, but yeah, you understand my point. Storage, databases, any kind of data, sort of that kind of thing. So next one, we have a redundancy. Obviously, I'm going to show you that where you can find this redundancy or the data recovery solutions and option when you deployed your infrastructure, and how you can choose a paired region in that scenario. The next one we have is the planned maintenance. Yeah, that's what I was talking about, the logical maintenance. So for example, you have primary region and you have a secondary region. So let's say if I'm updating something on this particular region and anything goes wrong, and it could be a possibility the whole region may be down. So engineers need some time to make sure the data center, the region is back to normal state. And during this time, what it can do, it can choose the high availability option. I think you heard of active passive or active kind of high availability situations. So basically in that scenario, what it can do, it can logically transfer all the workload to the paired region or the secondary region, and you won't even know that anything goes wrong to the primary region, because the planned maintenance is going on and it has some trouble during the deployment. So that's how it can help us, the paired region can help us in the situations for us. So guys, let's talk about a little bit more in the website, and I will show you that where you can choose this paired region for your disaster recovery situations. Although I have shared the advantages of using Azure Paired Regions, but in case you need to understand more theoretical concepts, or you want to know a little bit more about in general, so definitely this particular website would be really helpful for you. You can come to this website and try to gather more information about that. But what is here I would like to show you at this moment is where are our paired region and how actually it can help us to deploy our infrastructure. As I said, that this paired region is not going to be configured by default for your data or everything else. You need to choose the right options to enable this feature. For example, if you choose a storage account, you need to choose GRS services right there. What it does, it actually copy your data from primary region to other paired regions, and it can help us to save our data in a disaster situations. Now, if you talk about the virtual machine and you have really a big concern because you're running a very important workloads, you can choose Microsoft Azure Site Recovery solution or service to enable this site recovery feature or service, and then you can use Azure Paired Region to copy your data to the target location or the paired location, and whenever you need in the disaster situation, you can make sure you can easily take this VM back to normal state from the secondary region. I will show you that where you can configure this option, but before that, let's try to understand a little bit more about the paired region, just to at least give you the basic idea. So right now, here you can see in the Azure regional pair, so you can find out these all different regions has a region paired A and B. So if you talk about the Asia Pacific, and if you have stored any of East Asia any resource, any VM, any storage, or any other service, the paired region would be Southeast Asia. Similarly, if you store anything inside Australia East, you can still choose Australia Southeast as a paired region. Right. So similarly, you can just find out more regions to the paired location, and it can help us to store our data to the secondary location or the target location, so that in case of any disaster, we can still go back to secondary location and make sure our resources or infrastructure up and back and running within no time. So to understand a little bit more about this, because I think in the whole page you can find only the points which we already discussed, and I don't want to discuss again and again to you. So let's go back to our Azure portal, and at least I can show you that where the services you can find to use paired regions. So the very first one, and in which particular service in Microsoft I am working, is Azure Backup Services. So I think it would be a great honor to share with you one of the features from Azure Backup Services, which can help you to deploy your infrastructure to the paired location. Also, now Microsoft is also planning to deploy your infrastructure to any other location or any other region, not just the paired region, because some of the users have this kind of request that, hey, I'm really have a concern in the same geographical region. Can I choose any other region? So Microsoft product team is currently working on that, and I'm pretty sure they can come up with a solution in generally or publicly available very soon. However, this is privately available. You can raise a Microsoft support request, and the respected engineer or whatever the engineer been assigned, you can ask question, and they can help us, or to you at least, to clarify your concerns on using the other peers to deploy Azure Site Recovery. However, let's go back and try to first go to the Azure VM you have created if we would like to enable Azure Site Recovery. And currently I am targeting Azure to Azure Site Recovery, which means that I have deployed my virtual machine within Azure platform, and I'm choosing the target location also within Azure, but in a different paired region. So let's do one thing. Let's go back here and choose disaster recovery. So as soon as you choose disaster recovery, on the right hand side, you can find the option that how Microsoft is showing here in the geography. Now, guys, my VM is currently deployed. Let me show you that where is my VM actually deployed. It is in West US 2. So as soon as I click on disaster recovery here, it can show all the geographical region where I can use to deploy or choose as a target location to save my data or the VM information to that location in terms of managing your resources. Why? Because we need to choose this, and the reason is because in case of any disaster happen to the primary region, you must have your secondary region up and running during that time. So basically, if you click here, you can choose all sort of options or regions available where we can simply choose the right target location or the paired location. Although you can choose paired location because Microsoft recommend that, but as I said, that Microsoft can also suggest you to choose the right region within the same geography that can also work for you. So this is one of the service which I think can help you to clarify your concerns. And here, as soon as I choose the location, you can see in the middle the replication diagram information being changed. So that can actually really help us to identify that where is the correct location we have actually chosen, and where we can choose the right option to make sure our data is protected. So I think you get the whole idea about the paired region. Now let's move forward and try to learn more about availability sets. All right, so let's talk about availability sets now. So to understand availability set, I think we should start with this particular picture where you can understand more about the concept, and you can also know that how availability set works in the real-time scenario when we deploy in Azure platform. So guys, in this picture, you can see that I have actually take two rack server, And in this both rack server, our plan is to deploy our infrastructure. So the point here to mention is, for example, if you are planning to deploy the disaster recovery plans and you are not choosing availability set, so what kind of challenges you can face while deploying your infrastructure? So start with the very first one that, and yeah, I would like to put you in the right direction that we are not talking about here the Azure regions. We are not talking about here the data center. We are talking about the rack server inside the data center where our actual resource has been deployed. Okay, so to understand this, I have planned to create two resources, one web server, second a SQL server. So currently I have contacted the Microsoft Azure orchestrator and asked him, hey, I need to create the resources as a web server and I choose this particular VM size. Please help me to create. So orchestrator reached to the service of the data center and asked for this particular rack server and said, hey, do you have space, storage, and all the resources to deploy this VM? So this rack server one said, yes, don't worry, I have all the resources. Please go ahead and create the VM. So it actually starts your VM here, and this is web server 1 up and running. Similarly, you have also created a SQL server, which is also up and running with no issues. Now, obviously you are thinking about creating a secondary server because of the disaster plannings, because we keep talking about the disaster recovery plans, and at least we should think of if one server goes down, we must have another server up and running during that time, right? So to achieve the desired goal and outcome, I decide to create another web server so that I can copy the same data to that web server in terms of make sure we have a redundancy if one server is down. So for that, actually, I again contacted the orchestrator of Azure, and Azure reaches to this, particular rack server and asks, hey, do you have resources to create this VM server? Because unless we have resource available in this rack server, it should prefer to this particular rack server at that time. So it could be a possibility that it goes to another rack server during that time, but yeah, most of the time it goes to the same rack server. So imagine here that you have created another web server which goes to the same rack server, and similarly you create a SQL server also goes to the same rack server. Now, now talk about the problems, the challenges. The first challenge is physical issues. Now, what exactly the physical issues I'm talking about here? Your hardware related issues like your motherboard, your capacitor, your storage, your power supply, your cooling system. Anything goes down, it could be considered that this particular rack server also in a down state too. And imagine if it does, then what happened? All of your 4 servers, web server 1, 2, SQL DB 1, 2, all these servers gonna be goes down, and yes, I am sure you're going to hate this outcome. Because if your server is down, your management, the company resources, everything is also down, and nobody's going to work if you are using this 24/7. So that's how the availability sets comes into the picture, and we actually understand after that how actually it helps us to identify that which rack server should be the right one for us. So basically, if we choose availability set, in availability set we have the logical identifications, logical grouping of these rack servers, which we called fault domains. Basically, fault domains considered as a part of our unplanned downtime or unplanned maintenance, because if any hardware turns into the problem, definitely it won't tell us first, hey, I'm going to be in the trouble, so please save me first. So definitely it's not going to be happen like that. So if your hardware is down, it immediately down, and if this happen, definitely it need to identify based on grouping. That's how actually it works. Let me just write down, this is FD1, and let me write down completely because I'm using my mouse, so it's very slow. And this is FD2, so fault domain 2. So as soon as we choose availability set, imagine. So one VM is created inside this rack server, correct? So now, just imagine, let me change the color so that it will be easy for you to understand. So right now, when we create another VM, it does not go to this one because we choose availability set, and the orchestrator, when asked to this particular rack server, and it said, hey, we have already created one web server from the same subscription, and for the fault tolerance or the high availability, it's better to create this on another rack server based on the fault domain 2 or 1 and 2 grouping. So your VM is actually going to be created inside this rack server instead of this rack server. So what it does, it actually having a 2 different web server running on 2 different rack server. So if any thing goes wrong to this rack server, don't worry, this rack server is up and running during that time. So that's how it automatically identify the grouping based on this full domain name of this rack server, and that's how it actually creating VMs to another available rack server instead of putting all the server in one single rack server. All right, so yeah, this is all about the hardware. Now we have another challenge: software updates. So I'm pretty sure that you are aware that whenever we patch a window operating system, sometime it goes wrong and it disrupts some of the services, and then we need to restart the server or sometimes shut down the server after find the downtime, right? You had these challenges. So similarly, obviously in data center, it could happen as well that we are updating something on this rack server and it may log down the whole server, or maybe it goes wrong during the update. So what Microsoft engineer has to do, it has to reboot the whole rack server to make sure our update has been successfully passed. So if this is happening, so obviously you can also expect your servers is going to be in shutdown state during that time or during planned maintenance, right? I'm pretty sure if you are using Azure, you also find sometime that this particular region or data center is in planned maintenance. So maybe your resources are not available, or maybe some services are going to be impacted. You have seen such kind of messages if you are already using Azure platform. So to avoid that, what Microsoft has done, actually they have divided this into the UD. UD means update domain. The update domains means if one of the rack server is updating, it automatically identify based on UD1 and UD2. Similarly, like fault domain 1 and fault domain 2. On the UD2, it will not start patching at the same time when the UD1 is currently doing the patching. That's how Microsoft automatically, or his intelligence behind the scene, works automatically. We don't need to do anything actually. It just groups automatically by the Microsoft application running behind the scene, and the developer will take care of that already because they have this kind of identification based on the rack servers or resources running on this particular rack servers, right? So I think you get the idea and you understand the concept here, that what exactly the difference between the fault domain and the update domain. And just to understand you, the fault domain is for unplanned maintenance because it's all about the hardware, and for update domain, it is only for software patching. So it's logically understanding about the behavior of the software patching, and it's really a great way to avoid any reboot or shutdown or downtime for our server, or in fact the rack servers as well. So yeah, now let's come back to the theory because I already explained the concept. Now it will be very much easy for you to understand this. So basically availability sets are nothing but the logical grouping of deployed resources. That's exactly we have discussed. So I think no need to repeat the same thing. And if we talk about the benefits, we already discussed that it will help us to make sure our servers and resources are up and running during both planned and unplanned maintenance. And the last one is it will help us to build a very reliable VM infrastructure solution. Absolutely yes. The reason why is because if you are running some kind of project where you have further end clients and they are looking for great SLAs, I think availability set would be the right choice to choose while deploying their infrastructure, because it can help us to make sure you can meet SLAs and end client servers are up and running all the time without any problem. So that's the overall concept of availability set. And let's do one thing to understand a little bit more. Let's go to the website where you can find even more information in this particular website. And I strongly recommend to at least go through these websites which I'm sharing in each and every video, because it can really gonna be helpful for you. So yeah, guys, I mean, you cannot find much information here because except this much theoretical part or the conceptual part, all other things are all about practical, which we are going to cover in this upcoming videos, because our next 3 videos is regarding, creating a free account, because I have seen some feedbacks that people are not so sure that how they can create a free account, because this is very much necessary to do the practical. So in next video, I'm going to share with you that how you can create a free account in Azure and how you can leverage your $200 for 30 days at least to leverage the resources of the Azure. And and after that we will talk about the availability zones, paired regions, and of course we will do the practical for availability sets as well. So for now, guys, I think you already understand the concept now, and I hope and sure that you find this video informative and helpful. And I think if you like the video, definitely I request you to subscribe and keep comment and like the video. In case comment means if you have any suggestion or any questions, I'll be more than happy and glad to share the answers with you or try to clarify your queries if there's any. So yeah, that will be all for today, guys. So yeah, please take care of your health, especially in India, because I can see that many people are currently affected due to coronavirus. Please stay at home, stay safe, your family and everyone. And learn together with me. Actually, the purpose of these videos is to share with you with free, of course, because YouTube is a free platform and you don't need to spend money to go to the institution. Yes, I also do have a plan to create some online meetings to give the answers of your questions, so we can meet that there, and you can ask your questions with me. I'm going to share the information very soon in upcoming videos. So yeah, guys, I mean, we have discussed a lot in this video, and I hope it will be really much helpful for you while learning AZ-900. So for now, please take care, have a good time, peace.